Hello! Last year in October 2021, I sprayed out these Dylusions Ink Sprays onto some different pieces of paper so that I could do a test on their lightfastness. It is now 8 months later in June of 2022, and I think it's time to look at the results because you're going to be shocked by them. Let's get into it! So if you don't know what Dylusions Ink Sprays are, they're very popular in the mixed media community for spraying in journals and all sorts of things. They have incredibly vibrant colours, they have really cute names, and I love the design of the labels on the bottles. So they're a very appealing product. Dylusion sprays are dye-based inks, so they have no particles in them, they're incredibly vibrant, and they're very, very translucent. In comparison, here's a pigment-based ink. This is a Bombay India ink, and as you can see here, down the bottom the pigment is much heavier and it sinks all to the bottom. So with inks like this you actually do have to mix them up, and they are a little bit more of a nuisance for that. But the thing with pigment-based inks is that usually they are considered to be pretty lightfast. Lightfastness, if you're new to the game, means how long will colours stand up to light. They measure these in museum conditions, so highly lightfast, or the most lightfast you can get, will be expected to stay bright and colourful for 100 years or more in museum-based conditions, so with a very constant light. And when something is considered to be fugitive, that means the colour disappears really quickly. So we're talking about natural daylight and sunlight here. And it's something that as an artist we need to take into consideration if we want to sell our artwork to someone else. Imagine selling someone a piece of artwork, they hang it on their wall and then it disappears after 5 years. So you do really need to take that into account. If you're taking someone's money, you kind of want to give them something that's going to last. And now, to be fair, these Dylusion sprays are not technically professional artist supplies. They're for making mixed media pieces, but on the other hand, there are people who have become professional mixed media artists, and I'm sure they do use these. So to class something as professional these days is not really that easy, because sometimes professional artists will use things that aren't exactly designed for professional work. And I've used these before. I think they're really beautiful, they are fabulous to work with, and I like them a lot. But these are kind of more in the craft market, if you will. Now, there are some which are designed specifically for artists, and these are these Ecoline brush pens. These are also dye-based inks, so these are going to behave in exactly the same way as the Dylusions. They are just packaged slightly different. This is a brush pen rather than an ink spray bottle. But I thought I'd just briefly talk about that before I show you the results. Now, if you want to check out the video that I did making these swatch cards, I will link it in the description below and also at the end of this video. You might want to check that one out first just to see how I prepared these. It hasn't got that many views, so I don't know that a lot of people have actually watched it yet. So give that video some love if you will. That would be much appreciated. But let's get on to the results, shall we? So first up is the card that I have kept inside my folio. It's been dark, it has not seen any light since I first swatched these, and the colours are still nice and vibrant. I'm not too sure if that has changed just a little bit, but there are a few little marks on here. That is the way the ink has bloomed on the paper more than it's actually physically changing, I think. But for the most part, these are incredibly bright, and that's good news. So if you've been spraying your inks into a book or a journal of some kind and keeping it closed, it's going to be fine. The inks seem to last perfectly well in the dark. My next swatch is at the other end of the spectrum. I had it stuck in the window, so it has had 8 months of sunlight, direct sunlight, Australian sunlight. It has been very bright during summer. At the moment it is winter, so I figured I might as well pull it out because we've had some very dull weather. But basically, this is the extreme condition that if you had a picture hanging in direct sunlight every day, this is what's going to happen. Isn't that amazing? Half of them have disappeared completely. It's just crazy. Let me lift this one up so you can see it a bit better. So I've been observing these over that 8 months, and I can tell you now the bubblegum pink disappeared in about a week. It was that quick. The other ones took longer, but this bubblegum pink was hopeless. It was just gone. And interestingly enough, the postbox red has held up relatively well. If I bring back the original swatch, it's actually not that bad. I mean, it has been affected by the sun, but of all of the colours that I have in my set, this is definitely the most Lightfast one. So if you were to choose any colour that's going to be relatively Lightfast, go for the postbox red. Otherwise, pretty much everything else is hopeless. The slate grey has stayed there, but you can see how much it's changed colour. So it looks a bit warmer in this one, like it's got a browner pigment. That has all completely disappeared, and we are just left with a plain grey. So it's not too bad, but it's not very Lightfast at all because it has changed colour. Balmy Night has disappeared, aside from a tiny bit of residue left on the paper. London Blue's gone. Vibrant Turquoise is no longer vibrant or indeed showing at all. Cut Grass is pretty much gone. Fresh Lime and Lemon Zest. There's a slight bit left, but I noticed after a while that both the Fresh Lime and Lemon Zest started to look the same, so whatever is in this lime is also in this lemon zest. And we don't have much left here for the Tangerine Dream. Not much of a dream really, more of a nightmare, that one. Crushed Grape has also completely disappeared. Pomegranate Seed has almost disappeared. Bubblegum Pink has disappeared, and as I said, Postbox Red is in relatively decent condition. So, the moral of this is do not put these inks into sunlight because it will destroy them really quickly, especially that Bubblegum Pink. This one is the worst of the lot. But this isn't quite the end of the story, because I know that this test here is a little bit silly. Most people are not going to hang their artworks in full sunlight every single day. This is just an extreme test. What would be more interesting to know is how do these inks hold up in regular indoor daylight? So when you've got the curtains open and you have pictures hanging on your wall, they're not in that direct sunlight, but they are receiving some indirect ambient light. I think that is a far more realistic test, and so I do have a third piece of paper with my results on here, and let me show you this now. They did fare quite a lot better than this one, that's for sure. And here they are. Now on this one, I just want to mention that so you can see how there's a bit of a circle here. That was actually done right at the beginning of the test. It was the first page that I painted, and I did get a couple of mistakes here. I think even this turquoise was giving me a bit of a background, although I'm sure this has changed a little bit. So on here, I can see there are a few differences in some of the colours, and already, if I hold those two, can we see how Bubblegum Pink is starting to fade, even just in ambient light? So this has not had any direct sunlight, but it's hanging on my wall, and so it gets some daylight from the window. Even the Pomegranate Seed looks like it's starting to change a bit. Crushed Grape still has quite a lot of vibrancy in it at the moment. The four middle ones seem to be the same. Vibrant Turquoise, I would say this backwash is just my mistake rather than the actual ink itself, because otherwise it looks quite similar. London Blue stayed the same, but I can see differences in the Balmy Night and the Slate Grey. As you can see on the one up the top, which is the ambient light, it is already starting to fade and change colours. That brownish warmth is already leaving the Slate Grey. In the Balmy Night, you could see that it is becoming quite a bit paler as well. So that's interesting. That's just hanging on a wall inside my house with not that much light, you know, just regular filtered light that you get from the window. So, in conclusion, when they say that a certain product is fugitive, in this case they really mean it. Dye-based inks just will not last in light. Even in ambient light in the room, they are suffering from it, especially these three. And in full sunlight, forget about it. The only one that kind of held up was Postbox Red, and even that one is fading. So this begs the question, should you use these to make artworks to sell? And I would say probably not. The problem is that other art supplies like these Ecolime brush pens are also probably probably going to work exactly the same. Now, I have not tested these to actually tell you whether this is going to be as fugitive as these. Maybe I can do a small test of those, but it's going to take months to see what happens. The thing is, they are pretty much exactly the same type of product though. This dye-based ink is just not going to hold up to sunlight, and so I would probably definitively say already that these are not going to be Lightfast either. So what happens if you make a piece and you want to sell it? Well, the options you have, you can either make prints of something, and so that will always last and you keep the original for yourself, or if you have sold the original or are planning to sell an original, might I suggest adding the caveat to the person that's buying that these are not Lightfast. Please tell your clients that these inks are very fragile, and if they are kept in a darker place, they will last for much longer. You need to let people know this, because imagine having this on your wall and it's just going to fade. This is fading after 8 months. What's it going to be like in 5 years? So please keep this in mind. As beautiful as these inks are, and they really are stunningly gorgeous, they are just not practical for hanging on the wall or for selling, really. But don't feel like you can't use them in your journals, because it looks like they last pretty well in a book. So I have all these beautiful ink bottles, but you, bubblegum pink, are the worst of the lot. And I know from now on I will only be using these if I make prints of something, or if I'm just going to keep it in my journal. So I hope this has helped today. I found this a really fascinating test, and it is quite shocking just how much they fade. I thought it was going to be some fading, but the fact that 5 of them have just completely disappeared just completely blows my mind. It is always worth doing a bit of a test for yourself to see how they're going to behave, and definitely hang something in full sunlight just to see that really extreme effect, but also hang it just in a regular ambient light situation too, because this is a far more realistic test for colours as to how they're going to hang. Thanks so much for watching. I have just been dying to show the results of this for a while, and I thought I would do that today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click that subscribe button, and let me know what you think of these. Would you ever buy these now that you have seen how poorly Lightfast they are, or Fugitive if you want? So I will see you all again really soon in my next video. I have a big artwork coming out. It is taking me longer than expected to finish, which is why I thought I would do this one in between. And I will see you all again really soon in my next video. I'll swatch you later. Bye!